Vinicius Jr. has everyone talking after showing off a completely new look. From a sharper jawline to a new smile, fans have been wondering what prompted such a dramatic transformation. The real reason behind it has sparked plenty of concern. Let's get into it. Vinicius Jr. had barely landed back in Brazil before he was in a dermatologist's chair. According to reporting out of Brazil, the attacker of Real Madrid and the Brazilian national team went straight from arriving in the country to the chair of the dermatologist. This wasn't some spontaneous walk-in either. Vinny Jr. had a chin harmonization procedure done at a clinic in Goiânia, right after wrapping up his vacation season in Europe alongside Virginia Fonseca. The doctor's name is Alessandro Alarco, and he's not just some random guy with a needle. He's the dermatologist that a lot of Brazilian celebrities trust. But here's the detail that really tells you how big a deal this was. Alarco wasn't even in Brazil when the booking came through. To handle the appointment, the specialist traveled directly from Miami, in the United States, headed for the Goiás capital, with the sole purpose of treating Vinicius Jr. and Virginia. The doctor got on a plane, crossed a continent for one appointment, and the clinic didn't just squeeze him in between regular patients. They shut down entirely. The logistics set up at the clinic demanded maximum discretion. The dermatology clinic closed its doors to the general public and suspended its regular schedule for the entire day, dedicating the whole operation to the couple alone. Think about that, an entire business closed for a single afternoon for one footballer and his girlfriend. And it wasn't just closed doors. The whole internal team followed a strict security and confidentiality protocol to prevent images, videos, or details of the pair's self-care routine from leaking onto social media. Other outlets described it in almost military terms. The mobilization behind the scenes was worthy of a superstar, and to make sure everything happened with maximum discretion, the clinic set up what amounted to a full-scale operation. So what actually is a chin harmonization? It's not a scalpel and stitches surgery. It's a filler-based procedure. As one outlet explained it, chin harmonization actually refers to using fillers to sculpt the facial contour. A Brazilian portal described the specific goal of the treatment as one that's quite sought after to project, define, and give more contour to the chin, enhancing the features of the face. And it worked, or at least it changed something, because nobody who saw the after photos recognized the guy. Videos started circulating of Vinicius signing a Real Madrid jersey for a fan, and from the side profile alone you could see it. A video went viral showing Vinicius signing a Real Madrid jersey for a fan, and from his side profile, the result of the chin harmonization was visible. One viral tweet that got passed around endlessly captured the reaction perfectly. Someone wrote that their brain wasn't able to process that this was now Vinny Jr. They swore it, the timing of all this matters too. This wasn't some random Tuesday. It happened right as Vinicius was stepping back into public life in Brazil, at an event for his girlfriend's new business, the opening of her first gym in Goiás. Vinny Jr. attended the opening of Virginia's first gym in the Goiás capital. Videos and photos from that gym opening are exactly where fans first spotted the difference, and the internet exploded. So by the time this story broke, you had all the ingredients of a viral moment. A secret clinic operation, a doctor flown in from Miami, a total lockdown on leaks, and then, despite all that security, leaked photos anyway. Whatever the team tried to keep quiet, it didn't stay quiet for more than a day. Once the chin photos hit social media, people didn't stop at the jaw. They started cataloging everything else that looked different, and there was a lot to catalog. The most obvious add-on to the jaw work was the beard. Vinicius had let his facial hair grow out, and multiple Brazilian outlets pointed out that this wasn't incidental. He was doing a job alongside the filler. One report put it directly: Vinny Jr. got a chin harmonization done and also let his beard grow out. The combination helped project, define, and give more contour to the chin, further enhancing the player's facial features. In other words, the beard wasn't just a vacation look. It was working in tandem with the procedure to reshape how his whole jawline read on camera. Fans on social media noticed the shift immediately, even before they knew the technical explanation. Comment sections filled up with people saying his face looked different from his last public appearances, full stop. As one outlet summarized the reaction, the player's presence at the location already drew attention on its own, but the look of the number 7 also became a topic among fans. On social media, many users commented that the forward's face seemed different compared to his most recent public appearances. Then came the comparisons, and this is where the internet really had its fun. Because once people decided Vinicius looked like a new person, they needed to decide who that new person looked like. The name that came up over and over again was Ramirez, the former Chelsea and Brazil midfielder. It became such a repeated joke that multiple outlets across different countries picked up on it independently. One report from Colombia noted that the reaction online didn't take long to arrive. Users on X started comparing the footballer's new look to that of former Brazilian national team player Ramirez, and even to samba singer Vinicius. A Mexican outlet ran with a similar angle, noting that the beard alone was enough to shift perception, and that the jokes escalated from there. According to that report, what caught the most attention is that his face is, even if only slightly, different, since he's let a small beard grow that on its own helps him look different. But not only that, because the mockery on social media didn't take long, since his face didn't look the same as always. With the publication of a few more photographs, followers started comparing him to other celebrities like singer Akin, or other footballers like Ramirez, who was once part of Chelsea's ranks in London. So within about a day, Vinicius Jr. had been compared to a retired Brazilian midfielder, a West African-American R&B singer, and a Brazilian samba artist, all off the back of one filler appointment and a few weeks of beard growth. That's the kind of pylon that only really happens to someone whose face is already one of the most photographed in world football. When you're that recognizable, any change gets studied, dissected, and turned into content within hours. Alongside the chin and the beard, people zeroed in on his teeth too, noting they looked cleaner and straighter than before, adding to the sense that this was a full refresh rather than one isolated tweak. Combined with the new jaw definition, it gave off the impression of a complete image overhaul rather than a subtle touch-up, which is exactly why the comparisons to other celebrities felt so believable. To people scrolling through their feeds, it wasn't just his chin looks sharper, it was this doesn't look like the same guy who was playing in the World Cup 3 weeks ago. And that gap between the guy Brazil watched wearing the number 10 shirt in the tournament and the guy standing at a gym opening in Goiânia is exactly what fueled the confusion. People weren't reacting to a subtle cosmetic adjustment. They were reacting to feeling like they'd lost track of what their own countrymen looked like. That's a strange thing to feel about someone you've watched score goals for years, and it's exactly why the story spread as fast as it did. From Brazilian entertainment blogs to Spanish-language sports outlets to English-language aggregators, all within about 24 hours of the first leaked images. Once the photos were everywhere, the reactions split into 3 very different lanes, and all 3 matter if you want to understand what this moment actually meant. Lane 1: straightforward praise. A chunk of the reaction was simply people saying the procedure worked. Fans posting side-by-side comparisons, pointing at the jawline, saying it genuinely sharpened his profile. This is the most straightforward reading of the story. A guy got a cosmetic tweak, and a decent slice of the internet thought it landed. Combined with the beard and the tidier teeth, plenty of comments framed it as a glow-up, not a joke. Lane 2: the jokes, which came fast and came from everywhere. The Ramirez comparisons, the Akin comparisons, the Vinicius comparisons. These weren't malicious so much as reflexive. Football social media does this to everyone eventually. A hairstyle, a beard, a new haircut, and suddenly a player is trending under someone else's name. It happened to Vinicius on a much bigger scale simply because of who he is right now. Arguably the most talked about Brazilian footballer alive. Fresh off a World Cup on the planet's biggest club. Lane 3 is the one that's harder to laugh at. A portion of the reaction wasn't jokes or praise. It was concern, fans openly worried about what pushes a 26-year-old, who's already one of the most photographed athletes on the planet, toward changing his face at all. Vinicius doesn't operate in a normal spotlight. He's spent years being one of the most racially abused players in modern European football. And that history is part of the backdrop, whether anyone says it out loud or not. The numbers on that history are staggering on their own. Between his move to Spain and now, Vinicius has been targeted so many times that outlets stopped counting incidents individually and started counting legal complaints instead. By early this year, the tally had climbed past documented single digits into double figures. The forward has been the victim of a series of instances of racist abuse, with 18 legal complaints filed against racist behavior targeting him since 2022. That's not a string of unfortunate one-offs. That's a pattern spanning stadiums across an entire league. Some of it has been genuinely grotesque. Fans hung an effigy wearing his shirt from a bridge before a derby. In January 2023, Atletico fans hung an effigy of Vinicius from a bridge near Real Madrid's training ground. Months later came the incident everyone remembers at Valencia's Mestalla, where the abuse was bad enough that officials had to pause the match using the anti-racism protocol. The most explosive incident came at Valencia's Mestalla, where monkey chants and gestures led the referee to activate the anti-racism protocol and briefly halt play. Vinicius has never stayed quiet about any of it. After Valencia fans were eventually convicted, He framed the whole ordeal in terms bigger than himself, writing that he wasn't a victim of racism, but rather a tormentor of racists. This first criminal conviction in the history of Spain is not for me. It's for all black people. That's not the language of someone who's been shielded from any of this. That's someone who's absorbed years of it in public. Match after match, headline after headline. So when a chunk of fans looked at his new face and felt something closer to sadness than amusement, that's the weight sitting behind their reaction. Nobody directly tied the clinic visit to the abuse. There's no quote from Vinicius, his team, or Dr. Alarcao linking the two. But it's not hard to see why some fans made the connection in their heads anyway. When you've spent years watching someone get picked apart for the color of their skin, watching him then get picked apart for his jawline hits differently, even if it's dressed up as harmless internet humor. The three lanes, praise, jokes, and worry, all existed in the same comment sections, sometimes in the same threads, sometimes from the same people flipping between reactions within a single scroll. That's part of what made this such a big story so quickly. It wasn't one clean narrative. It was messy, contradictory, and very online, which is exactly the environment where a footballer's chin can become a worldwide talking point. Within 24 hours, to understand why this happened right now, you have to rewind 2 weeks, to the tournament that ended Brazil's summer far earlier than anyone in the country expected. Brazil went into the World Cup as one of the tournament favorites, chasing a sixth title after more than 2 decades without one. Instead, after winning 3 of their first 4 games, including a round of 32 win over Japan, the Selecao ultimately fell short against Erling Haaland's Norway in the round of 16. Despite being the most successful nation in World Cup history with 5 titles, Brazil have now gone without lifting the trophy since 2002. It was, by any measure, a bitter way for the tournament to end for a country that measures itself against football success more than almost any other nation on earth. Vinicius himself was one of the only genuine positives to come out of the whole campaign. Vinicius was one of the few bright sparks for Brazil during their brief stay at the tournament, scoring 4 goals. He started every match Brazil played. At the 2026 World Cup, the Real Madrid forward featured in all 5 of Brazil's matches, scoring 4 goals and providing 1 assist. On an individual level, he delivered. On a collective level, the team around him didn't hold up, and Brazil went home earlier than in almost any tournament in the modern era. The exit clearly hit him hard. He didn't say anything publicly for days. When he finally broke his silence, the emotion in his message was obvious. He described overwhelming frustration and told fans the feeling of frustration is absurd. We had a group strong enough to do more and we couldn't. I apologize and will fight for our dream of returning to the top of the world. He also drew a direct line back to his last World Cup disappointment, saying, "Almost 4 years later, I'm once again thinking about what to write after the disappointment of a World Cup," referencing Brazil's quarterfinal exit to Croatia back in Qatar. He explained that he needed time before he could even process it publicly, saying he'd needed several days to reflect before addressing the painful elimination. That's not the language of someone shrugging off a bad tournament. That's someone genuinely wrecked by it, taking days just to find the words. And then, after that period of reflection and public apology, he went on vacation. Following the elimination, the forward began his vacation, before returning to Real Madrid to prepare for the start of the new season. That vacation is exactly where the trip with Virginia Fonseca fits in. Weeks away from the game, away from cameras, away from the immediate aftermath of one of the most disappointing results of his international career. And it's at the tail end of that stretch, right as he was heading back into public life, and back toward Real Madrid duty, that he walked into that clinic in Goiânia. Line it up, a World Cup exit that clearly took an emotional toll. A vacation to decompress, a rekindled relationship with his girlfriend playing out in public at her gym opening. And then, timed right at the seam between vacation and the return to football, a complete refresh of his face. Pre-season under a new manager at Real Madrid is coming fast. Whatever this was for him personally, the timing lines up with a man closing one chapter and stepping into the next with a literally different look on his face. None of that proves any single motive. Nobody involved has laid out a tidy explanation connecting the disappointment of the tournament to the decision to sit in Alarcao's chair. But the sequence speaks for itself. Heartbreak, silence, reflection, and apology, a vacation. A reconciliation with his partner playing out publicly. And then the appointment that changed how millions of people saw his face within the space of a single afternoon. So where does this leave things? Vinicius is still Vinicius, still Real Madrid's number 7, still one of the most scrutinized athletes on the planet, still walking into a preseason under a new manager with a World Cup disappointment fresh in the rearview mirror. What's changed is how the world is looking at him right now, at least for this particular news cycle. The jaw is sharper, the beard stays for now. The teeth look different to a lot of people scrolling through comparison photos. And none of that is going away before he's back in a Real Madrid training kit, standing in front of cameras that are going to zoom in on exactly this from every angle imaginable. What's genuinely unresolved is the bigger question underneath all the jokes. How much of this is simple vanity? How much is a guy in his mid-20s making a cosmetic choice the same way anyone with the means to do it might? And how much of it connects to years of being looked at, judged, and abused in ways that have nothing to do with football? Nobody, including Vinicius himself, has answered that question publicly. Dr. Alarcao hasn't given interviews explaining a deeper motive. Virginia Fonseca hasn't either, despite being right there for the whole appointment. Real Madrid's official channels haven't touched the story at all, which tracks. It's not a football story to them, even if it dominated football social media for a solid week. What we do know is what happened in order. Brazil went out of the World Cup earlier than anyone wanted. Vinicius carried real weight through that tournament and clearly carried real pain out of it. He took his time to speak, then he went on vacation. Then he reconciled publicly with his girlfriend, then he walked into a clinic. That shut its doors to the rest of Brazil for one day, and came out the other side looking like someone half the internet needed a second to recognize. Whatever comes next, how he's received back at Real Madrid. Whether the comparisons and jokes fade the moment he's back scoring goals, whether the conversation about the pressure on him gets picked back up, or drops entirely once preseason starts, that part hasn't been written yet. For now, the chin is new, the beard is staying, and Vinicius Jr. is heading back to Madrid to get ready for a season that's going to put his face, new jaw and all, back under lights bigger than anything a clinic in Goiânia could ever control. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content. Fact check: did Vinicius Jr. undergo chin surgery after Brazil's FIFA World Cup 2026 exit? Brazil star Vinicius Jr. is unrecognizable after chin surgery post-World Cup. Vini Jr. passa por harmonização no queixo ao lado de Virginia. Vini Jr. faz harmonização de queixo em Goiânia. Veja as fotos. Vini Jr. surpreende com procedimento estético e chama atenção em dia com Virginia. Vini Jr. chama atenção com novo visual após procedimento estético. Esquema de sigilo. Descobrimos o procedimento estético feito por Vini Jr. no Brasil. Quase hizo Vinicius en la cara. Com novo rostro, Vinicius Jr. repairs publicamente con una nueva apariencia. Vinicius Jr. racism history. 9 times Real Madrid winger was reportedly abused. How Real Madrid's Vinicius became repeated target of racist abuse. Real Madrid's Vinicius Jr. alleges racism as Mourinho and Benfica under fire. Vinicius sorry after Brazil World Cup exit. Real Madrid ace Vinicius apologizes after Brazil World Cup exit. Vinicius Jr. apologizes after Brazil's elimination and vows to keep fighting for the World Cup dream 2026 7-10.